You dropped out of school pretty early. You stopped going to school as
Yeah.
in your mid-teens. Did you think that you were going to be an entertainer?
Yeah. I wanted to be a punk rock star. I wanted to be a rock star. And punk rock, when I was a teenager, punk rock was in its first real flush of, being the thing. And um I wanted to be 'cause I was my nickname when I was a kid was Tubby. So I wanted to be thin and be in a band. And I got into a band. I never got particularly thin, but I wanted to be in a band and be part of the rock scene. I wanted to be cool. Um, and I felt like rock music, punk was. It's hard to explain it now, but punk. Everybody was in a band during punk rock. Everybody. It wasn't a genre. It was the teenagers. It was what we were, and we didn't have Instagram or we didn't have, there was no social media or that kind of thing. So we, it was what set us apart from the other generations, including the, slightly older flower power boomer people and all that. We didn't want to be part of that either. And so that ethos, that rebellion, that madness was very attractive to me. I was a very troubled kid. I was very frightened all the time, and I think that probably wasn't helpful to a young person.
You were a drummer, which means that, if you're a decent drummer, you can be in a lot of bands because
Ye
everybody needs
Everybody
a
needs a
guy that
drummer.
has their own drum set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
At some point,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, well, I wasn't that good, but I did have my own drum kit. You're exactly right. I was like, so you get to be in a lot of different bands. I was okay. It was passable. I was in some bands that, if you can tell whose dad has the van, because very few rock bands, punk bands need a clarinet player. But if you've got a clarinet player, it's probably his dad has a van or a large car, and that was indeed true.
At some point, you were in a band with the actor Peter Capaldi, who
I
from
was,
Local Hero and The Thick of It and Doctor Who.
yeah, 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 yeah.
He's one of my faves. How did you end up in a
Oh, he's one
band
of mine
with
too. I love
Peter
Peter. I
Capaldi?
love
Yeah,
Peter. Yeah, Peter's a lovely man. In many ways, Peter was instrumental in kind of steering me into what I do now because when we were kids, Peter's a bit older than me. He's about 5 or 6 years older than me. So he was really cool. And he was the singer in the band. And I idolized Peter. I loved him so much. I still do love him. And he was so elegant and clever. And he had this collection of, amongst other things, he had a collection of stand-up comedy albums from American stand-up comedians. Richard Pryor, Steve Martin, Robin Williams. Uh, he had these albums, and we would listen to them. I had never heard anything like this before. And I thought these guys sounded really cool as well. These guys, it was a whole thing I really knew nothing about. I mean, I knew Robin from Mork and Mindy, but I didn't know he was like a stand-up or anything. It was fine. And also Bob Newhart. When there was all these albums of Bob Newhart pretending to phone people in history, which were, I just remember them being hilarious.
they are. I mean, they hold up too. Yeah. What a genius.
He was great. You know that Bob Newhart was the last guy on my old late night show?
Really?
Yeah. We ended the show with a dream sequence. So the dream sequence, the horse takes its head off, the horse that used to run about, and inside it, we've got Bob to be inside the horse. So Bob was the reveal was that the horse that had danced around the whole time was actually Bob Newhart.
I went to his house once. That was like a highlight of my life. We booked him on the show for something. I don't remember what
Yeah.
he was promoting. And they were like, well, Bob would rather not go somewhere. And we were like,
That
yeah,
sounds
we'll
like
go
him,
to
yeah.
Bob Newhart. This is not a problem for
Yeah, yeah.
us. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, load up the car. We'll see you in half an hour.
He had such a beautiful friendship with Don Rickles, and that he and Don uh, and with their wives would go on vacation together. And my wife and I had dinner with them a few times in Los Angeles. This is the high point. I mean, it's a real feeling of being part of show business when you get to sit at the table with these like the Meshuggah factor. It's lovely.
Did you think that you were going to become a famous professional musician, or did you think that you were going to be a punk rock dirtbag and that was the cool thing to be?
I don't think I thought forward a lot. I mean, I developed alcoholism pretty early. So my kind of career plan wasn't thought out like that. You know, it's funny now when I talk to young comics, or I listen to young comics, and or young artists of any stripe, and they talk about their plans for what they want to do. I never had any of that, and I think it's very wise to have that. But I just didn't have it, and I kind of stumbled from one thing to the next. I really did, and it almost looks weird now because it. If I look back on a lot of it, it looks like, well, clearly, you had a plan, but I didn't. I really didn't have a plan of how it was going to turn out. I liked being in the company of musicians, and I still do because I love music. I like to make it, and I like to be around it, and I like the way musicians think for the most part. I love music. It's that, what was it, I think Basquiat said about music? Art is how we decorate space, but music is how we decorate time, which I think is such a lovely approach to it. So, you know, I just wanted to be in that world. I found it acceptable to me, and it was very forgiving of who I was. I would kind of a car
By
crash drunk, really.
yeah, I was about to say, by who you were, do you mean drunk?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I
Drunk but
was,
interesting. Maybe drunk but interesting, let's say.
I don't know how interesting. I think maybe just noisy. I was noisy, and I was enthusiastic, and I was I don't know. I like to have a good time. I like to hang in bars, and do all the stuff that we did. Um, but when the others would go home after an evening or a day or a week, I couldn't. Just kept going. I couldn't stop. It took hold of me. It whatever it was, it took me. I wasn't following any plan or trajectory that I had in mind.